Hi, and welcome to a live edition of Art Now and Here on Atlantic Broadband Channel 25, going out throughout the Atlantic Broadband cablecast community. And tonight I have a great pleasure to bring on to the show a guest, Joseph Rivera, the Hygienic Art Gallery Manager, and somebody who's been doing a lot of work running up into the Salon Independents and all this great art celebration that's about ready to happen in New London and southeastern Connecticut over the next couple of weeks. So, Joseph, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Joe.
Definitely, it was great. We were talking. This is a tradition. I told you when I said it's a tradition that you, the gallery director, manager, appear on short notice on Art Now and Here, and your predecessor, Sarah McKay, who was somebody I consider a friend, was really great, and she was a real trooper about showing up on short notice. So when I saw you in the gallery this afternoon, I'm like, this isn't unprecedented for me to ask, literally hours before the show. So thank you so much for stepping to the plate and coming on the show tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I think it's in the nature of artwork for a lot of things to be short notice, especially with the hygienic. So
definitely,
and that could be a really good thing.
So briefly, give us a little background about how you ended up as the gallery manager and what's going on, and what are some of the things we have to look forward to coming up with the Salon Independents.
Right now, the Salon Independants, the Hygienic Art Show we do annually, is entering its 40th year. That will begin on Friday. It goes on for 2 weeks. I believe it ends on February 9th. It begins with the Hygienic Screening Room. That is an independent film festival. We also have the Hygienic Hootenanny, which is happening at the Right Path Organic Cafe, and the screening room happens at the Crocker House. Saturday is the exhibition that started it all. It's the Salon des Independants, which is a no judge, no jury, no fees, and no censorship exhibition. One artist can bring in one piece. No one can say who is or who is not an artist, and no one can say what is artwork and what is not artwork. And we accept pretty much everything. Continues with the Rock House, which is an awesome rock concert happening at the Crocker House, also that Saturday. Let's see, what else do we have?
Yeah, that's great. The Rock House is something I always look forward to, because it's a full day right off the bat, or a full weekend really. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm looking forward to the screening room, of course, and usually I'm involved with the screening room, and then the show, which is so much fun. Mm-hmm. And it's like everybody and anybody who's doing art in the southeastern Connecticut area is going to show up Saturday morning, some well before, the 8 o'clock, I believe, is the opening time, and people lining up with their artwork, and you get a little bit of everything. And I mean, some years, I think Vinny used to tell me it was like 500 different artists represented.
Yes, that's what we're expecting, and since it is the 40th anniversary, I think we're going to have a huge turnout.
Yeah,
so I'm excited for it.
It's a great, and that's one thing about the Hygienic I always loved. And for me, the opportunity to know that you'll always have a place to exhibit something there the third week of January every year, and as long as you show up with the piece, you're going to have it in a really great gallery and seen by a ton of people. And it was such, for me, always is such a great motivating thing to do artwork, knowing that it's going to be in a show, and it's nothing more gratifying for an artist to have their work seen in a gallery space by like-minded people. Mm. Yeah, that's one of the real beauties of the Hygienic.
Yeah, I've heard it being referred to as an outsider art gallery, at least being against tradition, as as the Salon des Independants started. For example, we just had our annual high school exhibition called Whalers and Lancers that we exhibit artwork from high school students from New London High School and Waterford High Schools. And one of the most gratifying things that you mentioned is for artists to see their work in an actual gallery, and for many of those young artists, it's going to be the first time seeing their work and even selling their work, even if it might be to a family member or someone who just came off the street to see it.
Yeah, and it's inspiring too to see young people come into art from a direction that is, you know, a lot of times sort of really unfiltered. You know, they're approaching the whole process of doing art without any of the preconceptions and notions and formal training that, you know, many people, as myself, you know, have. As you get older, it's great and always really refreshing to see the Whalers and Lancers show, and then close on the heels of that is the Salon Independents.
Yeah. It's always a really awesome dynamic. It's nice to have a mix of kind of like classically trained artists and then people who didn't even know that they were artists.
Right. Well, the screening room is one of the first things up in the whole extravaganza of art, celebration of art. I like to think of it as, and it's something that, as I said, I've been involved in, and that's sort of, you know, my comfort zone in the arts, although I venture into other areas, and really looking forward to it. So Joe, at this time, can we play that promo for the screening room, and we'll kind of kick off the vibe with what to expect with some of these events.
Get ready. Hygienic 40 Screening Room, January 25th, 7 p.m. Crocker House Ballroom.
A magic picture that moves and talks now comes to your screen at your command.
Well, there it is. That's a promo I put together for the Hygienic Screening Room, and that's coming up Crocker House Ballroom this Friday, 7 o'clock. And I've seen a bunch of the films that have been submitted, and I think we have 25 or so odd different filmmakers have submitted. It's essentially a short film festival, and definitely get out and check that out this Friday night at the Crocker House Ballroom. Suggested donation at the door, as with all these events. They're essentially free with a suggested donation. The Hygienic obviously is trying to do so much stuff, so they're always appreciative of people who make donations, but essentially they're free events with a suggested donation. And the Crocker House Ballroom should be a really good time Friday night.
It'll be awesome. Yeah, most of our events are suggested donation. There's just a couple that are mandatory fees, the ones that do sell out every year, such as Naked Canvas.
Right. Oh, and the Naked Canvas is relatively new. I think this is the third year.
I believe so, yeah.
For the Naked Canvas, and you know, I haven't gone to see the Naked Canvas, and I'm going to try to make that one. The Fashion in the Ballroom, I always see, always involved with that, and later in the show, I'll play something that gives you a really good sense of that. And who are some of the new people in the Fashion in the Ballroom? Fashion in the Ballroom this year. I know you have the stalwarts: Susan Hickman, Anna Lucas, and Sec Noir. I know is another one that I think I saw there. But I think there's some new designers this year, and that's one of the things that really keeps it fresh. Is there are new designers in that Fashion in the Ballroom, and that is packed. And the Naked Canvas, I've heard really good things about. Really fun. So why don't you talk about the Naked Canvas event for people who aren't familiar with it?
Right now, Naked Canvas, entering its third year, easily one of our most packed events of the entire Salon des Independants festival. And it is about 40 models and 40 body painters. They start early afternoon or in the morning, and from 8 to about 11 o'clock on Thursday, January 31st, you'll be able to see everyone's work. So it's a mix of professional body painters and makeup artists, and amateur as well, which kind of goes with the whole notion of, you know, no judge, no jury, we accept everyone. So that'll be very exciting.
Yeah, and you gave that date. It's Thursday, January 31st, 8 o'clock to 11 is the fashion show, but is the show itself, but there's the painting of the models is going on, And how is that? Is that a part of the event, open to the public?
I believe that happened a little bit beforehand.
Right.
Yes, that does. Most of the painting does happen beforehand.
Right, and because I know it, some of them, and I've seen the pictures. It's a really detailed process, and I'm sure it takes hours for some of the artists.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that I got the first year they did it right away. It was a huge success, and then they had a lot of people. I mean, I was figuring, well, maybe a handful of artists. There was 25 artists, and 25 models, and maybe some artists with multiple models, and that was a big event in terms of the artwork.
Yeah, and I'm told it gets bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah. Well, really cool. That's going to be great. And the fashion in the ballroom, the Salon to Independents. How about the Rock House? What can you tell us about the Rock House? That's the first Saturday of the whole show. That's January 26th. Again, Cracker House Ballroom, 35 Union Street. Talk, if you will, about the Rock House.
Sure. That one is coordinated mostly by Ben Parent, who's been with us for a long time. We're going to have awesome acts. We have the Hempsteadies, awesome New London band.
Yeah.
Headlining, as well as New Johnny 5, which is a legendary rock band who used to play at LNG. They have an awesome following who recently reunited for the Hygienics Towers of New London show that happened earlier in the year, which was
in the art park. Yeah.
Awesome reunion from all the bands who played around the 80s in the LNG.
Yeah. Let me see if I can run down. There's I think a total of 5 bands. Is it on the Burnouts, the cartoons, Burnouts from Outer Space, Dog Bite, as you say, New Johnny 5, and the Hempsteadies are going to headline that, and that usually runs until about midnight, after midnight, that show.
Yeah, I think it goes from about 5 or 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. Actually, the doors open at 6:30, and it'll go until 1 a.m. that night. That's gonna
be really good. I was there, was it last year or 2 years ago, where the Franklin brothers were the headliners, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's always great, and the Cracker House Ballroom is a really nice venue. It'd be great to see that maybe as an existing club. It's like the times I've been there, I'm like, wow, what an unbelievable space right in the heart of New London, and it's only used, it seems to me, unless I'm missing something, it's only used for a handful of events during the year.
Yeah, the most I hear about it is only through our events. I'm sure there are other rentals, I'm sure there are weddings and things like that they do. But, yeah, they're also an awesome New London staple. Yeah,
it's it'd be interesting to see that space there is. I mean, it really comes to life for these events. You'll have screening room, fashion in the ballroom, naked canvas, and the Rock House, all in that Crocker House Ballroom. And every time I'm there, it strikes me like, wow, this would be a really great spot for an ongoing club. And since the LNG closed down, in a way, New London hasn't had that really big space where you could have a club act. A national club act, an act that maybe wouldn't fill the Guard or doesn't is not going to fill Mohegan Sun Arena, but would draw a great club crowd. And in New London, the Cracker House Ballroom is a space. I don't know. You could put 1,000 people, maybe not 1,000, 700, 750 in there easily for a great club act. And since the LNG closed down, New London doesn't have that space.
Yeah, I do hear a lot about that. The LNG was legendary. I was born in '94, so I wasn't old enough to, unfortunately, experience all that. New London does have awesome music venues. 33 Golden Street and Oasis Pub does a ton of music, and we do our best with the, with the venue that we have as well. But no, there's sort of a lack of club space in New London now. So yeah.
Interesting. Speaking of music, let's touch base about the Hootenanny, which is really the event that kicks off things Friday night. And this year it's at the Right Path Organic Cafe.
Yes, it is. Robert Bernardo, owner of Right Path, was very nice to donate his space for that and hosted there. They actually just moved from State Street to their new location on Bank Street. It's a really beautiful space. Hugh Birdsall is taking that over as coordinator. It'll be a really awesome night of folk, acoustic, and rock music.
That's an event that was always near and dear to the original founders of the Hygienic, and I'll mention now Jim Stitfold.
Yes.
Who, as a lot of people know anything about art in New London, and as we've mentioned, passed away not too long ago, and really the whole Salon Independents is celebration of art. Hygienic 40 is really in his honor.
Yes, it is. Really unfortunately passed away just the other week, and we did have a gathering for him at the Hygienic, and so many people who haven't come back to the Hygienic, came back to support and give their condolences to his wife Sherry. But yeah, so many people knew him. He had such an impact on the community here. I only wish that I got to, speak to him more and have his influence. But I think, even people yet to be born will be influenced by his community work, because he really kind of built a lot of these pillars that exist in the community.
Yeah, and needless to say, Jim was instrumental in saving the Hygienic from destruction, and then in the conversion of the Hygienic from this delinquent building into this great art space that is so much of what's great about New London. And for me, it represents absolutely, the arts represent the best of southeastern Connecticut, and the Hygienic represents the very best of the arts in the area. And Jim was somebody I consider a friend. Unfortunately, I had to see him suffer a lot in the last couple of years of his life, and he'll definitely be sorely missed. But he left a legacy, and a big part of the legacy is the Hygienic.
Yeah, I would say that he built a home for many, and that home will continue to stand for even those who, will never have the pleasure of meeting him. He built a home for, even though I don't live here, I consider the Hygienic a home. I think the Hygienic is such a hub in New London that many who don't actually live in the building do consider it a home. So yeah, we all have Jim to thank for that.
Yeah, it's great, and it was always fun to talk to Jim about some of the sort of, like, for lack of a better term, boots on the ground stories about when they first started converting the building. Yeah. And Jim was one of those people that was tireless in his efforts to rehab the building, overcoming tons of obstacles, some physical, some political, some, of various creations. And that was always, to me, one of the funniest, and if you ever talk to Jim Stitfold, he could turn any subject into a humorous story. And that was always, to me, one of the really fun things about talking with Jim were these stories of in the first year or so. And Jim was a reporter for the Norwich paper, and that's how he actually ended up getting involved with the Hygienic. Was he covered the first year of the show, and he was sort of came at it from that point of view, and unwittingly then became this Bob Vila of the Hygienic and rehabbing the building space itself, and it's just a lot of fun with Jim, and he'll be sorely missed, but and it's going to be great to see, and the outpouring of love is going to run through each and every one of these events.
Yeah, for sure. I wasn't as familiar with Jim as many of the people involved at the Hygienic who've been around for a long time were. But I did meet him during the groundbreaking ceremony of the amphitheater, which was our first year with. And I was still interning for the Hygienic at that time, doing mainly graphic design and marketing work. And I was still living in Rhode Island, taking the Amtrak in. So that day I arrived for the ceremony, still didn't know many of the people involved. But I was searching for a place to sit. He kind of saw me awkwardly looking around, and he invited me to sit next to him. He said, hey, my name is Jim, and Jim Stitfold, and I recognized the name, so I said, oh, Jim. I said, thank you so much for everything you've done. I've always revered the Hygienic, and I just knew that how much work he had put in, even if I had yet to hear about it. But he was very warm, very sweet, and very kind with me, and I'm glad I at least got to meet him then and say thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And, That is the operative phrase too. You know, thanks Jim for saving the building from demolition, because were it not for his intervention and the intervention of Vinny and a handful of other people, including, you know, driving to Hartford at sort of at the 11th hour, the building was going to become a bank parking lot for Citizens Bank, and that was basically less than 2 weeks away. The demolition plans were well in place, and you know, Jim is one of the people who appealed for funding and appealed for, you know, historic preservation and whatnot, and spoke, you know, in Hartford on short notice, and it's really a great story. It's one of the great things that not only is Hygienic evolved into this great art space, but there's that aspect of historic preservation and a real grassroots effort to do something that was the right thing to do in the community, and that's part of the legacy of the Hygienic.
Yeah, it's extremely inspiring. I think it easily inspired a lot of economic revitalization, other businesses and business people seeing what could be done, seeing the efforts of people with or without experience, you know, rallying together to save something that they believed in.
Right.
Again, being young, I wasn't around for it, but I do hear that New London has come a long way since the 70s.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and again, I don't want to be a downer about it, but I get on my soapbox on this one, because a lot of times people are always saying, looking to the Hygienic to be the savior of New London, and Hygienic being this economic, you know, force that's going to lead to the revitalization of downtown New London. And that sometimes it takes on too much of that, for my opinion. And I'm just shooting from the hip on this one, because it's like, you know, what can New London do for the Hygienic? You know, it's like everybody looks at the Hygienic for what it can do for New London, but, you know, New London needs to do for the Hygienic too. And that's anyway. That's my soapbox there. It's
definitely a symbiotic relationship. You know, we try to collaborate with businesses the best we can, and yeah, and definitely it is a big community effort.
Right.
From my perspective, you know, being a volunteer coordinator, I see a lot of people, you know, caring a lot about it. It definitely attracts a lot of people to the area, and attracting, even if it's volunteers for us, brings, you know, business to the rest of the businesses around us.
Right. Yeah. And where I'm coming from is, what I enjoy about the Hygienic is to see somebody like a Casey Neistat, who had his roots are in the Hygienic. Casey Neistat is the biggest thing on YouTube, probably vlogger. He's changed video on YouTube. He's done a lot to revolutionize the medium, which is an international, worldwide reach. And he started at the Hygienic Screening Room in large part with him and his brother working on films that, were it not for the Hygienic, who knows if he'd have the same inspiration to reach the acclaim that he has now. And it's typical of what can spring forth. And Barclay Hendricks unfortunately passed away. He was a professor at Connecticut College, and his work is going to live on forever. And it was first exhibited in the Hygienic, or not first exhibited, but one of the places that was really fond of his heart, Barclay Hendricks, great, amazing artist, was the Hygienic. The way the art market goes, he passed away. It wasn't long after he passed away, a bunch of his works went under the gavel in New York, and they averaged like $750,000. Wow. And some of that stuff was shown at the Hygienic, and he was instrumental, another one of those people, instrumental in the early days of the Hygienic. And this is a legendary artist who posthumously, his fame is only growing now, and to see his work and to see that, know the connection that he had to the Hygienic should be something that everybody's really proud of in New London. And sometimes it seems to me that people overlook some of that stuff in the course of, well, let's make the Hygienic this engine for economic revitalization. Well, hold on. The Hygienic is beyond New London. Hygienic is bigger than New London, in my opinion. Hygienic is, who knows? And I just mentioned two people who have had worldwide influence, and their roots are in the Hygienic.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would consider like well, people consider it a small gem, but it shines extremely bright.
Right.
It's a huge model for, you know, potential of the power of art, and we see that in the people who come through. I've heard so many incredible stories about artists and volunteers and just really romantic acts of faith and creativity. And, you know, we are definitely trying to kind of give ourselves a little more exposure, you know, at least to inspire others in different places where, you know, this could be a possibility somewhere else. There's so many small downtown areas, especially in New England, that are in desperate need of revitalization.
Yeah.
And that's possible through the arts, and the Hygienic is the story of that.
Right, and it like you say, it is a blueprint, but I think a lot of towns would be hard pressed to match what the Hygienic's been able to accomplish, and I just, you know, the Hygienic is going to carry on. There's going to be this is Hygienic 40. There's going to be a Hygienic 100, and long after I'm long gone, and you know, there's going to be a Hygienic 100. You know, and what is that Hygienic? What is that going to look like? You know, I know I'm looking forward to Hygienic 40, but it's just begun. You know, it's an amazing thing anyway. So I did get a little emotional in a way too, because, you know, I know that it's like it's a relay race, it's sort of a baton race, you know, and you've come in and you have a lot of energy, and it's going to take a lot of other people to come in who have a lot of energy and keep the baton going and keep the idealism, you know, keep that moving forward.
Yeah, there's a ton of passion. The passion is basically in the veins of Hygienic. No one involved doesn't have that really strong passion, and it attracts people, you know, that feel strongly about it. I started only as an intern, you know, last year. And New England is my hometown, but I was living near Providence in Pawtucket, Rhode Island for about 12 years, and I was always attracted to the culture of New London, which I think we have Hygienic to thank for that.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about all this great art. Let's take a look at some of the stuff. I put together this video a few years ago. I think it was the 2016 Fashion in the Ballroom. And this is a video from the Crocker House Ballroom in that event a few years back. And to just give you a flavor of the quality of the great design work and the models and the production, and the whole presentation of the show was really just off the charts. And I was proud to be able to document some of it that year. And if we could, Joe, let's at this point roll that DVD footage. Well, there it is. That's the fashion in the ballroom from a few years ago. And as we were talking here in the studio while that was playing, I just want to give a shout out to Pro Systems out of Manchester who did the lighting on that for that year. They were great. And from that year, I know we have Susan Hickman, Anna Lucas, and Alonzo Costello, who's Sec Noir. They're definitely back, I know, this year. I think they went, I mean, there's some other people that are involved. Who are some of the other people?
Right now, debuting this year, and it is actually the 10th anniversary of the Fashion in the Ballroom. You're going to call it NLX. We have debuting Leilani Simone Fashion, Desegno Girls, which is Katie Fogg with, I believe, help from Justin Credible. We also have Vintage and Vibe, who is, I believe, Jennifer Hall. And then the famous New London, which is Frank Lowe, DJ Frank Lowe.
Oh, cool. That is a show that's always great. I mean, Anna, you know, she's been a stalwart on that show, and Susan and Sec Noir, they've been there, and it's really, and it's a great venue, and they'll have like a boutique set up in the lobby every year, and just really cool. I mean, a fun time, and like a lot of these events too. And this is another one. A part of the show is the crowd.
Yeah,
because the crowd is definitely, for that one in particular, is definitely high fashion.
We'll also actually have as the MC Frederick Douglass Knowles, who is the Hartford Poet Laureate, which is awesome.
No, really?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, there's always an MC there for that one, and some DJ. There's some DJing, some really cool music. I remember, I think it was that year or the year after. It was like, man, that DJ's got it going on. They were playing some just great tunes, you know.
Yeah.
And,
the DJ this year, I believe, is DJ Surround Sound. We'll also have
DJ Surround Sound.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I'm with it.
No, it's an awesome name. And then we also have dances by David Dorfman. So it'll be a really eclectic night of performance and fashion and great music and vibes. It'll be great.
Yeah, there was a dance crew that year. The video you just saw, Interstellar Expressions, I think was the name of it, and they were really great. They had these hoops, and yeah, that was fun. It's just another great event. So what are some of the events that we need to touch on? Because there's more stuff. The Mayfly Playhouse.
Yeah, the Mayfly Playhouse is really cool. I believe they're in their 11th year. They call it Mayfly Goes to 11. And the basis behind that is different groups of kind of like actors and screenplay writers get together. And they have 24 hours exactly to come up with a play with certain directions or like a certain prompt. They have that long to kind of write the screenplay and then rehearse. And it's called Mayfly because it being run in 24 hours is the lifespan of a Mayfly.
Yeah. And that, speaking of Jim Stifel, that was always a program that was like near and dear to Jim's heart, and Jim had all sorts of involvement with the Eugene O'Neill and Waterford, and the Mayfly was always a great source of joy for him, and something that represented a big part of the Hygienic, and something that he was always advocating was the theater aspect of Hygienic. And that's another thing. All these different events, all under one umbrella.
Yeah. It's really cool. We have a bunch, and the other ones I didn't cover were the Poets Cafe, which is the last event. That's Friday, February 8th. That one is coordinated by Juanita Austin, who was my mentor when I was an intern. She had the role that I took over after she moved on. And that is always really cool. It's like a huge poetry slam that happens right at the Hygienic Galleries. And Juanita is also coordinating a artist documentary and artist talk. That one's called Born Black and Female. That one will be Wednesday, January 30th at 7.
Right, and that's in the gallery space.
Yep, that'll also be in the gallery space.
Right. Oh, cool. Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff, and each year there's sort of events that sort of morph into new events, or like as you say, the Poet Slam and some of the different things each year. There used to be a thing called Band-O-Matic. Have you heard about the Band-O-Matic?
I have not.
And I think to revive the Band-O-Matic, because I'm somebody who plays some music. I used to be in a couple bands, but it just I need a kick in the backside to get going playing some music. And the Band-O-Matic was basically a bunch of people sort of committed to forming, like the Mayfly Playhouse, basically, sort of committed to forming sort of an ad hoc band for the purposes of one show. And a bunch of names and what instruments they play were all put in a hat. And basically they were to some extent picked at random and to some extent drafted, and bands were just crafted, and total strangers would form a band. And usually 4 or 5 bands would end up coming out of the whole, draft, if you were. And then there'd be a show, and the show would be like at the Oasis. I think it was at the Oasis with the last one, and it was called Band-O-Matic. And the Band-O-Matic is an event. It'd be fun to maybe resuscitate the Band-O-Matic.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, with like 40 years of history, events do come and go. Sometimes they get brought back. I have heard of other events such as the Hygienic Cabaret, which has been held at different places such as 33 Golden Street.
Right.
And that was a night of, kind of like adult entertainment, poetry, art, not kid-friendly art.
Yeah.
And then I hear about the Ice Carnival that used to happen and different things like that.
Yeah, the Ice Carnival, Amy Hannum was always an advocate for the Ice Carnival. And then there was a year where the bushes caught on fire.
Yeah, that's a story that I hear often. I think that might have been the last year that they did it. They didn't stop because of that. I think it was just for production reasons. But I do hear about the legendary bushfire, and there's a little gap in our bushes now thanks to that. Yeah,
there were some pyrotechnics that went slightly astray. Yeah. And in the dead of winter, there was burning bushes down on Bank Street for that one.
It's kind of prophetic. It's not easy to cause a fire in winter in those conditions.
And I think that was the opening night of the Hygienic too. So you had just absolute chaos going on in downtown with all these people around, the Ice Carnival in the art park, the Salon Independents opening, the screening room in the Rock House going on in the Crocker House, and then the bushes caught on fire.
Yeah. I think Hygienic is kind of known for its kind of like organized chaos.
Yeah, that was the high watermark or low watermark, depending on who you talk to. I think the New London Police Department and fire crews would probably say that it wasn't the finest moment, but Sarah used to love to tell that story. Sarah always talked about that. I think that was Sarah's first year as director too, and that was part of her indoctrination to the life as gallery director of the Hygienic, was putting out the burning trees in the art park.
Yeah, that's a literal trial by fire, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. Too funny. Oh my God. But yeah, looking forward to all these different events. So what are some of the other things that we looking forward to at the Hygienic, and some of the different agenda that you have?
Right now with our 40th year, I mean, we're getting bigger all the time. We just locked down our 2019 exhibition schedule, so we're looking to have a huge amount of awesome artists, whether it's solo shows, group shows. One of my favorites is always the annual resident show. We actually have 2 new resident artists, one of them being Nick McKnight, who is a neon sign artist, also a poet, and does pretty much everything mixed media. And our other artist is actually our curator in residence, which is Juanita Austin, who is back now.
Cool.
Which is awesome. So she works with our artists and curates her own shows as well.
Yeah, that's fun. That's good to know. That's the first, actually, I didn't realize Juanita was back in the fold, and she always had a lot of great energy, and certainly comes and brings a different perspective to the environment, and she's got a lot of energy and a lot of passion for the arts, and she's great.
Yeah, it's really nice to have a young like-minded person there, And even if in age they're a little older than me, I think everyone at the Hygienic is pretty young at heart.
Yeah.
With all that passion. It's nice to have the other residents too, such as Susan Hickman, who coordinates Fashion in the Ballroom, Troy Zoshny, and Ryan Whiston as well.
Right. So all this stuff that goes
and
on
Alicia
with...
Shower, I'm sorry, I can't forget her. She's awesome. She's a tattoo artist at New London Ink.
Okay, yeah, and she's been involved for a long time with Hygienic, needless to say. One of the things, and all these great events we're talking about, to a large extent, are run by volunteers. So if you would just, speak on how the volunteers and what their contribution is, and some of the things that we're really thankful for in the way of community participation to keep all these events going.
Yeah, community at the Hygienic and in New London is definitely what I'm most passionate about. Starting kind of on a volunteer basis myself and coordinating the volunteers now, I get to see a lot of people who care about the community, a lot of people who actually brought into New London, whether it's to live or to spend their time through volunteering. I'm at the Hygienic, and people volunteer there because it's fun. They feel like they're part of a family, which it is. We all have fun together, we all laugh together. They get to enjoy the events, and it doesn't ever feel like work, which is great. So
yeah.
we have our volunteers to thank for everything ever since the Hygienic started.
Yeah, it's really great, and the city, in their infinite wisdom, I understand the politicians. They couldn't agree on a whole lot, but they did agree about one thing recently, and that is they proclaimed January 26th Hygienic Art Day.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I was so happy to hear that happened, and I did hear it just yesterday as they proclaimed it. That was, I think, the best surprise I've had, like, working there.
Yeah, that was great to hear some good news coming out of City Hall.
Yeah, that was nice. So thanks to Mayor Passero and the City of New London for putting that on for us. That'll be one of my favorite days of the year, starting now.
Yeah, Mike is he's a supporter of the arts. He'll be there Saturday night for the opening, I'm sure, and taking in a lot of the events. I'm hoping he's going to come over to the screening room. He has in the past, and it'll be interesting to see the crowd. Hopefully the weather will hold out Saturday, and we got our fingers crossed for that, because it's an overflow crowd. The opening for the Salon Independents is just a party in the streets as much as it is in the gallery space. Who knows how many people will be down on Bank Street. Sometimes there's 2,000 people on Bank Street that night.
Yeah. Like you said, I think the crowd is as much a part of the artwork as is the artwork in the galleries.
Yeah, definitely. It's fun, and the naked canvas and the fashion in the ballroom, screening room, Salon Independents, Hootenanny, Mayfly Playhouse. It's just a whole bunch of great events. So we're running out of time here, and thank you so much for coming down to Art Now and here, and hopefully this is the first of many appearances on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Definitely, it's been a lot of fun, and appreciate the opportunity to do this show. And this is kind of like why Art Now and Here is on the air, to give a forum to some of these great community efforts. And as anybody who's watched this show in the past knows, big fan of Hygienic Art, big fan of the Garden, and the whole southeastern Connecticut arts scene, and it's really going to shine very brightly in these next 2 weeks. I hope everybody in the audience can get an opportunity to get out, check out some of these events. They're going on. Check out hygienic.org, check out Facebook. Hygienic has a great page there that's constantly going to be updating all these events. And with that, I'm going to say this is Art Now and Here, over and out. Art Allen here, over and out.